Okay, so happy middle of the week, everyone. This is Nina from E27. Thanks for joining us today and for participating in the poll that we just launched today. To those who are observing the upcoming holiday, it's exactly 15 shopping days before Christmas. And I can just imagine how busy our online stores will be. But it also reminds me how the past few months have accelerated the digital transformation for businesses and how these have changed the way consumers interact and behave online. And we are not just talking about online stores here, but all other types of digital platforms that we rely on these days, such as telehealth consultations, entertainment, delivery apps, you name it. And this brings us to why we are here today. So for our friends who are engaged in business and have an online presence, you would understand the importance of creating a seamless digital experience for your customers. So today we're going to zoom in to one feature that is crucial to making that beautiful and interactive digital journey a possibility. And I'm talking about the in-app chat. So as we tackle the discussion on building versus buying your in-app chat, we will also talk about the considerations to take when making that decision, weighing in on the cost, the risk, and the problem on both sides. Of course, we'll take a look at some use cases along the way, and we have three wonderful guests with us today who will help shed light on the topic. So let's get started. All right. So first, I'm calling in Yaekyum Lee, or YK as he likes to be addressed, who is the APAC Head of Sales at Sendbird. So YK focuses on supporting customers to design and build the best possible in-app communication experience and engagement. So he began his career as an M&A banker at Rothschild and studied computer science and finance from WUSCL. So he's going to kick off this conversation by giving us the opening remarks. So YK, over to you.
Hey, thank you, Nina, and thank you everyone who have joined our time together today. It's a great honor, and it's exciting to be together with you today. And thank you in the session together with us. And before we began, I was just looking at the attendee list that signed up for the seminar and the panel, and it was quite striking to see a lot of leaders across diverse backgrounds and different types of companies, starting from fellow entrepreneurs to startup teammates, and to even large companies in the traditional industry. Discussion with all of you today, and thank you again for joining us. And definitely today the topic is build versus buy, and I think we all go through this question day to day. Even here I'm kind of showing up as Sendbird, who sells on this side, but also I'd like to mention that we also deploy about 13 to 20 different SaaS tools and PaaS tech stacks within Sendbird. So I also have a mind and a view that you would also bring at the same time. And I think also even if you are doing mostly buying on the buying side to service your consumers, I think you two are also in the same shoes with me, and a lot of us joined on the revenue leadership in the SaaS and technology solution side that have joined today. In building not just a product but a culture around customer centric company, and in that where build versus buy comes into building your DNA and how you build a culture around building great products and building customers. Maybe too much of a wide topic than a build versus buy. You just begin. Before we begin, I definitely love to address the poll results. It's great to hear that more than people are using a chat API, and hope that's all Sendbird. And in terms of the scale of 1 to 5, how crucial for your business is having chat. It's important to most of you, or at least so or mostly. That's really great to hear. As and there's very important as well. So it's really great to hear that. I was a little bit cautious that even though we're going to talk about build versus buy, we are going to triage that conversation probably a lot pointed into the API business, and specifically the communication API sector, and wanted to make sure you wouldn't be too bored if we go into the chat space, and was concerned how high level we were, but seems like we can go deep into that space. And before we hop right into the discussion, I'd just like to take a few seconds to address who Sendbird is, what we do, and we can hop right in. And Nina, if you can move us to the next page. Thank you. Yeah, so I think some of you may have heard of us, Sendbird. We are a startup, born out of Korea, but based in the States. We currently, operate all over the world with about 30 countries in mind. We are a Series B stage startup. And I just wanted to start off right before, without talking too much about Sendbird itself, just addressing you, our customers, who have not built, but may have built before, but have eventually bought us. And I think you might be familiar with a lot of the logos here as a user of the services like the Paytms, the Karims, the GoGo Vans, Ola, Delivery Heroes. That was a lifeline for me all this year because I can't cook. And Reddit, where I often find myself during work hours, and Dream11 and MPL, who pay me more than my salary. Of course, joking. And we have customers in 5 sectors in digital healthcare, marketplaces, on-demand, community, and media and entertainment sector, where there are many industry leaders who are trying to keep up with the consumer's high standards today. And really, when I mean high standards, it's really interesting to think about how many people are on messengers and messaging platforms today. That's about 5 billion people. And I think we all know that nearly it's impossible to see anything that 5 billion people agree on. And 5 billion people around the world agree to use Messenger as the day-to-day medium of communication. I think that's one thing that we take for granted as if it's like a air in the air, but it's so true. And that's where we come in with our work with our customers. So in digital healthcare, especially, was a special year for our customers, where a lot of the weighted change and COVID has worked as a catalyst to propel a lot of our customers to accelerate their roadmaps into connecting offline healthcare and maneuvering much large portions of that to online, and where we interact as a medium to building the best interfaces for our customers to provide doctors or care providers direct connection with patients on their platform. And on marketplaces, I think you are all familiar with the logos, especially from the Southeast Asia crowd. I think you all have taken part in the carousel selling journey this year. This was also my first year selling a lot of stuff online myself in the classified markets, and that's where we connect the buyers and sellers with customers. And our on-demand sector customers, where we traditionally used to do a lot of phone-based or SMS-based communications, now everything is being moved in-house, in-app, and that is where we play the journey of providing a platform for our customers to build the best possible communication experience within their own services. And on community, I think chat is definitely not a new thing. We've been chatting on our laptops or PCs or phones since probably 1990s. And there we have done interesting work on bringing version 1 of online communication experience to version 2. And would be very excited to share what that kind of journey would be. And now I think as later towards the year, we have seen a lot more moves in media and entertainment industry, where really a lot of the entertainment industry's offline fan engagement, offline concerts have been coming online, and we have been privileged to be a part of that journey in helping our customers. So really, thank you again for being a part of our session today. And with that, back to Nina. Thank you.
Thanks, YK. I'm also guilty of visiting many of these places quite a lot. especially during the lockdown. Yeah. So I think with that, I'm sure we're ready to go to our panel discussion. So you guys already met YK. Now let me bring in the other two panelists to complete our group today. So first we have John Sharp, who is a partner at Hatcher Plus. And Hatcher Plus is a data-driven VC investment firm. He is no stranger to technology, and I'm sure you'll hear more about him later, as he has sold tech to some of the world's leading government agencies and companies, including AOL, Comcast, Google, and so much more. And also in his portfolio, he has over 100 startups, including Datafloor, DocDoc, Dropsuite, and even Hatcher Plus itself, and so much more. So, hey, John, thanks for coming over. All right. Okay. And next we have Alfonso Fiore, who is the head of product at AirAsia. He fell in love with product management during his time at London Business School, and that's how he ended up in Asia, where he quickly rose through major Southeast Asian multinationals. And one thing that stands out from Alfonso's extensive bio as well is that he says that he seeks opportunities that make him smile and learn new things each day. And I hope that today is one of those opportunities, Alfonso, as you impart your knowledge to our audience.
Thank you, Nina.
All right. Okay. So I think let's dive into the first part of this conversation, where we take a look at the considerations to take when choosing between build versus buy, and of course, with the cost, risk, and problem factors also being put into this discussion. So to everybody, if you have any questions at any point during this discussion, feel free to write them down in the Q&A widget, or just let us know your thoughts in the chat section as well if you have any comments are relevant to our discussion. All right, so Alfonso, this first question is for you. From a product expert's point of view, what influences the decision to buy versus build, and what are the factors to consider?
Well, the way I look at this kind of problem is always based on an hypothesis testing. This is, I think, what product management should be about. So, and if basically I am in a product that doesn't have in-app chat, and I have the hypothesis that this actually will drive better engagement, maybe higher NPS, maybe more retention, then I think it's natural for me to think that in the first instance, in order to do a simple test, something that maybe is going to be measured in weeks rather than months, I think it comes quite simple to me that the best first step is to try to find something in the market which is affordable, easy to implement and integrate. And that's the way I would get started, because again, my goal is not to find the best maybe operations or the cheapest price available for that function, but test that hypothesis in the shortest amount of time. And that's how I go about when we try to solve this kind of problem. Let's see what we can. In fact, we had the same issue literally in the last couple of weeks in one of the products that I managed, and we did the same thing, right? There is a third-party vendor that is available. Let's test it out, and then later on we can have a different conversation in terms of what is the long term. But this is the initial approach into how would I start thinking about this problem in the first place.
Thanks, Alfonso. And I think that leads me to ask John, which is quite similar in like what Alfonso's already mentioned. So why do you think is it crucial for startups to move fast, especially when it comes to non-core applications? And for Alfonso, that's the method they choose to take, although, of course, they're not a startup. But for startups, why is it crucial to move fast? And what would be your advice to startups that are still stuck in this phase of their decision-making?
I think you have to first of all figure out what you're building and what your core focus is, and what is peripheral to that. I think a lot of startups make the mistake of saying, well, if for no good reason, that they're going to go and reinvent Slack and Sendbird and 5,000 other things, and they lose focus on what their core contribution is going to be. So the great thing about APIs and companies like Sendbird is that you can pull in almost overnight. You can pull in capability that you can add to your product, and in particularly with chat functions, you can start communicating with customers. And customers are the only way that you can develop a product with any that's going to have any kind of life to it. If you develop a product in an absence of feedback from the customers, you're heading down the wrong road. It has to be a constant iterative process that's informed by the customer. And I've run a bunch of support teams in my life, and a good support team supported by a good chatbot can provide a lot of input into the product development process if it's correctly channeled. And so that's one reason to incorporate into this. But I'd say the real difference here is the speed of what you can do using APIs, and by understanding what your core competency is relative to what is peripheral. You can do a lot by using APIs and by incorporating something like Sendbird into your platform.
All right, thanks, John. And I think YK can add more into that, right? So maybe some of our attendees here, they're still deciding, still unsure. What should they consider in order to arrive at that favorable decision?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, thank you so much, Alfonso and John, for using Sendbird as an example. Thank you so much. I definitely I'll try to kind of make it a little more broad overall, and in terms of stage as well. I think Alfonso and John covered the startup and fast paced go-to-market for startup phase a lot, and really besides. For kicking off, testing the MVP version quickly and going to market fast. I think these days we run into two cases a lot, and this is happening not just us with our customers, but also our space on some of the tech stack that we built ourselves when we were building out Sendbird, like our internal dashboards, our internal insights boards, our internal analytics, our payment systems, or our documentation systems, things like that. And really where we see a lot of hurdle is going from version 1 to version 2. And especially, given how quickly the consumers' taste and expectations for a different type of user interface, a different type of user experience, and more integrated experience between all of the applications and services that are live today, I think we really see a strong demand for going from version 1 to version 2 on the the standalone features that we built inside our services before, and that is where interestingly actually a buying decision sometimes helps, because going from version 1 to version 2 you run into two problems. One is understanding what has been built before, which is always the hard part. So inheriting the legacy from your predecessors, your previous engineering leaders, or your previous iOS or Android or server engineer. That part always is a big challenge, because it won't have documentation. It won't have a nice onboarding program. You might not be able to go back to ask questions because that person might not be no longer at the company. And going from V1 and V2 is always tough, because V1, going from 0 to 1 is hard in itself, in the fact that just getting there itself is a feat. But version 1 to version 2, you have to deliver on expectations on the user end. So if you revamp your service from version 1 to version 2, how much better it has to be than version 1 is where I think the challenge really rises. Before, it might be a simple interactive interface for consumers to interact with each other on your platform, or to with your agents, or within the community. But going from version 2, it can't end just there. It only has to work better, but also provide more value-add features, like can you send payments there? Can you buy and sell directly on the interface? Can you make deals? Can you share integrated content? Can you hop onto video and voice calls right then, without having to go to WhatsApp or such? So I think that challenge becomes a wholesomely different challenge that we didn't expect before, but we are seeing more so ourselves as well. Like, it was easy building our internal dashboard in 2016, but really trying to go to a dashboard where 250 employees need to be able to log in, look at related information for the company, for our customers, for our customer success managers to use, even for our customers to use our dashboard, it just became a different scale expectation challenge. And then I think the other part that we run a lot into when we meet with tech leaders that run large tech startups or even large enterprises is knowledge retention issues. You may have your best engineer building the most critical, reinventing the wheel in a short time frame for to get over that first hurdle that you had a few years back. But most likely, your best team does engage in different types of projects, and the team grows too, and the team grows out of the role, the team grows out of the feature itself, unless there are more direct roadmaps. So then, you have to come into a question where, are you going to actually build an Amplitude? Are you going to build a WhatsApp, or are you going to build a Sendbird and retain that top talent and continue to pour in resources to maintain and grow that, not just that feature, but also that team's appetite for growth and learning experience? And the other part is obviously, given how, and coming from Silicon Valley, the retention period of startups of their own teammates are frankly not something that we are proud of. It's very short. So in 2-3 years, will you have that engineer that worked on the project with you as a lead engineer or lead Android developer? Will he be there, or will she be there with you 2 years later when we have to go from V1 to V2, and when there is a critical issue and that needs to be addressed? One, will they be there at the firm? Or two, will they be there willing to work on that same project again? I think that's a lot more type of build versus buy talk we have today with tech leaders.
Thanks, YK. That's a lot for our attendees also. I'm sure that they've learned a lot. But John, let me ask you, let me just get back a little bit. Does it matter in terms of like their at what stage of growth they are when they're considering building and buying?
Not at all. Let me share a little story. So in 2001, I walked into the largest cable company in the US, and I was selling streaming media on the internet, and they didn't want to have anything to do with that because it was just way too early. The licensing things were too complex, and what we were selling was not what they wanted. So I did the smartest thing any salesperson can do and say, well, what do you want? Maybe we can get you that. And they said, look, what we really need is a home security software suite that we can give to our 9 million customers. And I was excited about two aspects of that: the 9 million customers, and the security suite was something we'd already thought about in the connection with the streaming service, as we had a firewall and we had some rudimentary things together. To cut a long story short, what we managed to do, by virtue of the fact that there were APIs available, we could not have built a home security suite in the time that we had available to deliver. But because we were able to go out and we're able to find some SDKs for antivirus, for parental controls, for other aspects of this suite, we were able to, within 6 months, put together a suite of software that was able to be sold to this 9 million customers. And we went for, you asked Nina, what stage to do this? We were a little 3-person startup at the time. Within 3 years, we're about $8 million a year in revenue, and we're 100 people. Because of that initial meeting, because we ended up selling a whole bunch of the other cable companies on exactly the same idea and the same product. The product was almost entirely at the time made up of SDKs from external vendors, and our particular piece of owning that revenue stream came down to the fact that we were just lucky enough to identify the opportunity. Most of the building was actually done by people like Sendbird, people that were creating the core technology and enabling the right kind of hooks into it such that we could create brilliant products on top of it.
Thanks, John. Yeah, thank you so much. And I think having tackled these considerations in general, let's go right into like in-app chat and its impact and use cases as well. So Alfonso, let me address this first question to you. In today's highly digitized business landscape, so of course we understand that a modern in-app messaging is really vital to the success of your customer communication strategy. So what are some of your key learnings over the years, and especially during the recent months?
Yeah, so I think that this connects really much with what YK said earlier, right? There are 5 billion people that use Messenger and other chat apps on a daily basis. And this really, in my opinion, really creates a different structure for mindset of the customer, right? If you remember, maybe, I don't know, 5-10 years ago, we all cared how many minutes or how much our voice call costs in our mobile profile. Nobody knows. I have no idea how many minutes do I have today, and I don't really care because probably I have 5 minutes of traditional PSTN calls in a month, right? And so having that opportunity to create that synchronous communication without having to be to use voice, I think in today's day and age, especially where millennials are slowly becoming 50% of the addressable market, of the spending power, it's absolutely necessary. And AirAsia, it's case in point, right? We actually have our chat system called Eva, our virtual assistant, and Eva is able to handle more than 80% of our cases. And if you think about what happened this year, right, with the virus and how an airline such as AirAsia has been affected, you can take your wildest guess, multiply it by 100, and probably you're getting close to what happened, right? Then you can clearly understand that there would be no way to handle that volume of traffic if we didn't have Eva, right? And so if we didn't have for both web and app a chat solution. So absolutely for us, for AirAsia, has been absolutely business critical, and we wouldn't have been able to serve so many customers in these crucial months without this solution.
That's true. Thanks, Alfonso. So,
Yeah.
John, from your perspective, what's your take on the business impact? So now we're looking at the business impact of utilizing in-app chats among startups, and I guess you also have a lot to share from your portfolio. And how do you think has this evolved, of course, in light of the increasing digital adoption among businesses and consumers alike?
Well, I think Alfonso just made a really, really great point in that if you have the right kind of technology in this area, you can scale. I remember the first time I had to set up a support unit in support of these giant contracts we're winning with the telcos. We had to rapidly hire and train up a bunch of people. But what I didn't realize at the time is that using chat as opposed to phone calls enabled us to have 4, 8 chat screens open on a screen and service a much larger number of customers than we could have by phone. So I think Alfonso makes a very, very good point on the scalability of combining AI and tools like that to handle common questions. But in addition to that, allowing a particular live support person to handle multiple chat streams. These are things that enable startups to scale enormously quickly and to provide the semblance of a quality of service. One of the hardest things startups have is creating that sort of quality, that professional level of service that people expect when they're dealing with a non-startup. So matching that is very, very difficult. And I think if you have an in-app chat that you can incorporate and integrate with your own business, you'll quickly get ahead of the game because, again, it's all about servicing the customer. And chat is such an important part of that.
I couldn't agree more. Being on the consumer side of things as well. Yeah. So YK, I think you would like to add to what John and Alfonso have already wonderfully said, right? And basing also on your customers across the region, how they maximize and utilize their in-app chats, and how has the demand for in-app chat, of course, evolved as well. If you would like to add more into what they've already said.
Yeah. So I think how we and our customers have looked at the chat API sector is kind of looking at it as a PaaS business, more so a platform to build on top of, more like a operating system for communications. Of course, we started as enabling basic one-to-one chats for agents or our customers, and maybe expanding to communities, like providing group chats related experience like Telegram and what WhatsApp would provide. And I think nowadays we're seeing an evolution going into tying the platform itself to service business purposes more directly. So can you actually interact on the same platform that you were talking with your friend? Can you send payments? I think WhatsApp is already a good example in that space. But also for our customers like Paytm, who are payments fintech giant, can they send that payment over to their friend who would receive it on Paytm anyways? And can there be any other things to be connected on that interface? And for our game gaming consumers, our gaming customers, besides just the regular lobby chat and clan chat, can you provide viewing experience for esports crowds, and can they also have their community of engagement? Can they have interactions with each other to sell items and online goods within the gaming platform and exchange it right there in the consumer interface? And even and I think the problem is just not problem, but the opportunity is just expanding a little more and getting more interesting. Things like when we say online concerts, it seems pretty simple. But when it comes to you want to have an online concert that is engaging, it becomes a very challenging problem because online concert was always a one-way thing. But now, since when you open the floor up for communication to be enabled, you certainly have kind of two problems right then and there. One is, how are you going to moderate the engagement to make sure it does not get bombarded with something that is unrelated or something that will kill the concert itself. And second part is, how do you meaningfully provide technological tools that will actually create engagement between the audience and providers? For instance, if you online streaming like a famous pop artist's concert, you're going to get maybe 5,000 to 10,000 messages scrolling a second. How is the artist supposed to even interact with that? Which ones are relevant? How are you going to extract the topics? How are you going to understand the right intent of the audience? So I think really the layer where we work today is going from version 1 to version 2, where the feature itself is no longer important, but the technical operating system that we have built together and our customers have been building on top is where it becomes the core of the crux of the question. And really, that's where I think where it resonates well with where John and Alfonso was pointing out earlier. And at that point, to differentiate and survive as a business, you have to really focus on what you can only do and not others can do. If you spend time building an engagement tool for online concerts, you are not going to be able to spend the time to extract the right topics that is relevant to your business, because topic extraction tools don't exist much today in the world. So there are a lot of second level of engagement that is existing online today that there aren't tools for, and maybe there are no businesses for that yet, and maybe it will come later in the future, but it's so core to our customers, and that's where we see our customers accelerating towards and building and getting to where things haven't been there yet, and especially I think COVID being a catalyst for that, we're seeing lots of focuses in that area. I think even for healthcare is also a good example. Until 2019, online healthcare, it was really, if you say that, it was mostly, how are you going to do diagnosis more efficiently rather than doing it with paper? How do you digitize that? But today, we're beyond that question. Connecting doctors and patients, care providers and patients are so simple. But that doesn't do any differentiation with other providers. How are you going to layer in that extra value add functionalities as businesses and differentiate that we are also a doctor to patient matching platform, but what else is there that makes sense for you to provide that service to your customers consistently? And what is that value you are going to strive for on a consistent basis? And that's where we see us working as a in-app communications platform provider and enabling our customers to kind of superpower their developers to focus on next level questions that has to be built on consumer interfaces. I think that's where we see the impact being built a lot, and a lot of new use cases arising from today.
I agree. Thanks, YK. So it's really more about harnessing a solution that also evolves without, like getting into all the other confusion, but having that go along with you as you grow and scale, as what Alfonso and John have also mentioned. Yeah, so this leads us to our next section, a final one before we move on to Q&A. So let's address the age-old question, and why everybody's here, I guess, is to hear it from all of you, to build or not to build. Again, considering the other factors that we have mentioned, cost, risk, and problem. So I guess I want to start this one with John. Let's have your take on this one.
Well, I'm very. So I think there's two parts to this, right? So about my business. So we are a multi-community venture as a service platform. So we service lots of different kinds of investors that want to invest in different deal flows and deal with different groups of investors and entrepreneurs. And we have to keep all these people separate, but we have to enable every interaction that's happening on that platform to be logged, to be audited, to be understood. And so it's so what we find when we go into a venture company that doesn't have our technology or something like our technology is they've typically got a bunch of tools. Some of them are free tools, some of them are paid for tools, but they don't talk to each other. And so a lot of these tools are basically sitting there side by side in a browser or on their desktop, and they're not capturing and sharing data in such a way that you can go back later and say, well, did I have this communication? Did it lead to this investment? What was the performance report related to that investment at a later date? And so nothing is talking to each other. So I'm very much to my thinking, the best thing to do is to use as much as you can SDKs and APIs like Sendbird, so that you can actually pull them into your tech platform and then connect them to your database and connect them to the other apps in ways that make sense. And all the good APIs and all the good SDKs allow you to do this. And what that means is you can get fantastic debug technology in place that people can use, in this case, chat technology, but you can link it to your backend, to your financial reporting technology, to your CRM in ways that are really intelligent, meaningful, and quite deep in nature. So I'm very much we do a lot of building. We spend about $4 million a year building technology, but we also do a lot of buying. We have about 26 APIs that we use on our platform. And each of those APIs talks to the platform and enables us to keep all those APIs communicating with each other and keep all the data squared away and working for our customers. So yes, I would say I'm a big fan of APIs and SDKs and the buy thing, but we're also builders. You've got to, and this is the message for startups as well, you've got to focus on what you're good at doing. In our case, that's venture capital as a service. But you've got to buy in all the other stuff that you don't develop yourself, or that other people have done a far better job of developing than you could do in anything remotely like the same time frame. So there's a time to build, there's a time to buy. And when you're talking about a technology that's not core to what you do, buy it.
Thanks, John. All right, and now let's hear it from Alfonso.
Yeah, so I would say that I completely agree with what John just said. The other dimension that I would add to that is that, as I mentioned at the beginning, because I strongly believe that product is in a way hypothesis testing, then I would say initially I would always tend to side more on the buy side, because of course it would be quicker and easier to integrate and get started. But obviously it makes total sense that down the road, especially when we talk about the scale that a larger company like such as AirAsia faces, then of course I think it makes total sense to kind of have a simple ROI. I think what YK mentioned, all the drawbacks of not having clear documentation, not having not having a more complication in terms of how to get the history of the product, they're all true and I've all experienced them. But at the same time, we have to be honest and face the fact that of course a SaaS will have a recurring bill, and there is something else. Of course, it's a different type of recurring bill if we build it rather than buy it, because we have our own maintenance, we have our own development team, we have to we have a designer, we have engineers. So it's just a matter of understanding what makes sense for companies, right? There are certain tools that that make it impossible. I think the winners are the tools that make it impossible for you to go home and build it, right? Because they have so many features and they're priced in a way that it makes completely no sense for you to build it in-house. But there are other tools where basically they kind of think that they're in some sort of monopoly and the price is so high that actually often makes sense to build. So I think I would say case by case. On one end, definitely start by by buying, but then make a mini business case and understand if going forward, given the traffic that you have, what does make more sense for you.
Thanks, Alfonso. And YK, you want to add to that?
Before I do, I think John was going to chime in on something.
Yes, John.
Oh, no, I just did my mute off for a second.
Okay. Okay, YK, it's all yours.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I think I mean, on that point, I definitely can resonate well with what John and Alfonso mentioned. Starting wise, I think it's a no-brainer, and going on scale, it becomes a tricky question. The talent retention and the feature retention part is also there, but at some point, if you're paying $5 million or $10 million for a particular service, whether it is a piece of software or whether it's a piece of infrastructure or a piece of service you have been getting, I think it does justice to have a deep look at it. And as Alfonso mentioned, I think is it the replaceability of it is really when that comes to question, and does it really justify for the company in the long term to continue to pay that much dollars or margins on top of the basic infrastructure that you are getting. And I think that's where really, for all of us, product builders, that's where our challenge lies. Are we actually adding that much value on top, and are we continuously innovating on top of the infrastructure that we use to provide our services on? And how much of value creation do we do from that? And I think as a startup, I think we face that question very, very strongly at our day-to-day lives. I think each year, I think for our largest customers, like Delivery Hero, Reddit, or Rakuten, or Paytm, or Virgin Mobile, we have that scary chat each year, where is it worth continuing, or is it time to build, since the budget justifies that we can build a team of 30 engineers, and even in the valley, and I think that's really constantly a good energy source and a motivation for tools to continue to innovate, stay afloat, and continue to deliver better products for customers.
Okay, thanks, YK. All right, I think we have like a couple of questions that came in already. Like David has already sent this also beforehand already. So this is for YK, I guess. So a lot of mainstream messaging apps do not store messages for legal reasons. So for an enterprise customer, it would lose a lot of insights if it doesn't have access. Does Sendbird have centralized storage for analytics? I think you'd like to.
Yeah. I mean, perfect question. So one part is that we are a customer servicing product. So our customers' desires are exactly in line with what David just has mentioned, where we want to know what is going on our services and platform. I want to be able to moderate it. I want to be able to understand it so that we can provide a better service ultimately. And I think that's where equally with the build option, the buy option also comes in hand, because even though we can deploy things throughout the cloud, there are private cloud options. There are also virtual private cloud servers that we provide to our enterprise customers, or dedicated regions for our customers in a carved out base that does still provide all the compliance reasons, compliance like ISO 27001, SOC 2, HIPAA, GDPR, and all the nice compliance that we were ready for, and we provide that ability for our customers to access their own data freely and be able to work with the data, and also to enable that. I think we go beyond not just simple webhooks or extraction APIs, but we sometimes can even go to deliver data streams for our customers that are in real time. Split-second data needs of streams, we are able to provide things like that at scale.
Thanks, YK. Yeah, I think someone's just curious a little bit about Eva, that's Gunho. He wants to learn a bit more, and I think Alfonso can just share a little bit more about this and how it helps in the customer journey as well.
Yeah, so Eva is the AirAsia virtual assistant, so it's AVA, just to share. And basically, the principal idea there is definitely, of course, it's powered by machine learning. We have a lot of like structure driving of questionnaire to the customer so that we can direct them in the right direction, right? We can build those very quickly. In fact, in a matter of minutes, we can change the flow very, very quickly. It's very flexible. And in terms of the integration with WhatsApp that was announced just a few days ago, that was mentioned also in the question, basically the concept there is be where your customers are, right? So exactly like YK was saying, you know, so many people on Messenger, so many people on WhatsApp. So we basically want to be exactly where customers are. And maybe just a little bit of curiosity to share here is basically that Tony Fernandez, our CEO, already a few years back, I think 2 or 3 years back, decided that email were dead. And so even internally within AirAsia, we actually don't use email, we use chat. I cannot say that we never use email, but I can say that, 90+% of our communication is in chat. And we really kind of eat our own dog food. Let's put it this way.
All right, thanks, Alfonso. And I think we actually got some questions during the registration. And John, I think this one you can address. You've already spoken a little bit about this earlier, but I guess we just want to emphasize as well. Mohandeep from Soft Solvers is asking, from the investor's point of view, do you prefer if startups build all by themselves or work with partners or other building block providers? Because he has seen many funded startups developing tech stuff from ground up, saying the needs are different, but probably the reason could be something else.
It's a great question. I think anytime a startup comes to see us, we tend to look at the startup through 3 very, very simple lenses. And we just look to see if they have a good sales function, they have a good operations function, and they have a good engineering function. If you're just purely a sales organization, the issues there are going to very quickly come up that, can you protect your turf? Can you get out there with this sales only organization and really protect this market that you have? And the same with an operations function. Operations guys need engineers to make them more efficient so that they can compete. So a purely operations function on its own, it can be a difficult thing to back as well, because without that efficiency, it's impossible to reach scale relative to your competition. So the third aspect of this is always to look at the engineering function. And if there's no technology involved, like no core technology that is being built by the organization, it's probably not going to get venture backing. It's more likely that it's going to go for more traditional sort of layers of funding, which is just fine. But as venture guys, typically we love to see patents are wonderful if you can get them, but they're increasingly harder to find. But we're looking for core proprietary data sets, core approaches to building a technology. I think what we're talking about here today is really what you should focus on as a startup. And what you should focus on as a startup, just going back to my own story, is I focused on cybersecurity and building a great antivirus engine. And everything that was built around that was stuff that we licensed in from other providers. And that gave us the edge in the market because it was the combination of these things that made us valuable. But if we'd not had our own core technology, it would have been quite difficult for us to continue to raise money at higher and higher levels. So as a startup, you need to have something that you can put your hand on your heart and you say, we're developing this, it's different, it's proprietary, we can protect it. And it's up to the sales guy to sell it and the ops guy to make it run better than anything else on the market. But you've really got to embrace your engineer and make sure that they're creating some core technology that's useful and protectable.
Thank you, John, and thank you, Mohan, for that question. All right, so before we go to the final words, let me just launch our second poll just before that one. All right, so I hope everybody can also get to answer this. And so let's have a quick recap on what we discussed today just before we go right into the final word. So we tackled the considerations to take when choosing between build versus buy, explore the impact and use cases on utilizing in-app chats, and finally, our panelists weighed in on the buy versus build discussion when it comes to in-app chats. So I guess it's time to ask our panelists for their final words before we say goodbye. So John, let me start with you. Yeah.
Look, I think you've heard from me what the versus buy argument is. Look, I think something a well-engineered, well-supported, debugged technology that you can add to what you're building yourself and use to interface with your customers is a wonderful thing. I could not imagine being in Alfonso's shoes and having to deal with the amount of customers and everything that he has to deal with every day without there at least being some ready-made technologies that you can pull into that process to augment what you're doing. So that's my final word. I think it's a combination, isn't it, of the build versus buy, but stick to what you know, do that, focus on building that, and then buy in the things that can help you scale.
Thanks, John. Alfonso.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I would just repeat what John just said, right? I think it's very much focus on your core strength, create something unique, even the, but I always put this twist, right? At the end of the day, you also want to optimize the business case for yourself. So in my experience, some of the funnels that I've built in AirAsia in the last year, because AirAsia is going through this renovation and this creation of a super app in travel and e-commerce. And so some of the things that we already had, right? It was very much something that we bought or we partnered with, or anyway, something that we paid on an ongoing basis. And then we decided that it became our core business as we wanted to build it from scratch. So I think very much start by buying and then understand what in terms of both skills, expertise, people, headcounts, and financial rewards, what makes sense in terms of what to do next.
Thanks, Alfonso. And of course, let's hear it from YK.
Yeah, I don't think I can add much more on the final words. I mean, thank you so much for all the insights, John and Alfonso, and I mean, thanks everyone for hearing us out until the end. I think it was great learning experience for me as well. And whether build or buy, or whether Sendbird or not, really, I just I think especially today, really, even I see it from our customers, how important it is to create a ecosystem or community of its own in your own businesses and services. And I think hope that we were also adding value to the tech community of E27 today, and to everybody who came along as fellow product guys or tech guys or startup or entrepreneurs in the Asia Pacific tech ecosystem. Thank you again for your time, and hope we'll meet again next year in person. Sooner the better, and please stay safe.
That's correct. Thanks, YK. And to everyone, if you would like to connect with Sunbird, we are flashing their contact information on the screen. So also, please feel free to scan the QR code that's going to lead you to their webpage. And also, be sure to connect with E27 as well for the latest updates on everything related to the tech startup community. So I hope you'll learn something today. Thank you so much, Alfonso, John, and YK, for sharing your insights, key learnings to everyone. And I hope that all of these will help everyone make firm decisions on their in-app journey moving forward. Thank you so much, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Stay safe.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.